Hi guys, welcome to our first video of summer school. The next couple days we are going to be looking at elements of literature. Now, elements of literature are really what builds a story. So the plot, the conflict, the setting, all these things are going to be elements of literature. So today we're going to be looking at plot and conflict. So if you go ahead and open up that slideshow that I attached in Google Classroom, you can follow along with me. So once you open that up, you'll see it says elements of plot. You can skip right past that one to the second slide. And so, what is the plot? The plot, every story does have a plot. And the plot is really just a sequence of events that helps tell the story. It's the whole thing in very short and summarized. So, every plot should have five things, right? So, every plot should have an exposition, a rising action, a falling action, a climax, and a resolution. Those are the five things. Now, if you don't know what an exposition is or what the rising or falling action is, we're going to cover that today. So please make sure you are following along. So go ahead, go to the slide number 3, and you'll see it says exposition in big old letters. Okay? So the exposition, very simply, is the part of the story when the characters and the setting are introduced. It's like the beginning of a movie or beginning of a book where they're explaining who these people are and kind of what to be looking out for. So it's just the very beginning. Nothing's really happened yet. There's no conflict. It's just explaining what is going on in the story. That's the exposition. Just the introduction. Now, if you go to the next slide, you'll see it says conflict. It's going to be the struggle or the problem, right? It occurs in three phases: in the rising action, the climax, and the falling action. It adds kind of a sequence of excitement to the story. Stories are really boring if there's no type of conflict. If everyone just hung out and didn't do anything, it'd be a really boring story. So, yes, there are some stories that have very boring conflict, but for the most part, uh, the conflict is definitely going to drive the story forward to make it more exciting. We're approaching that conflict. So we had the exposition. We had here's everybody that's going on, and then we have some type of event that happens that causes some sort of conflict, and that's going to be the rising action, right? So introduce the people in our exposition. Something happens to cause some conflict, and that's going to hit the climax. We'll talk about it here in a second. But there are four major types of conflict. Now, you could probably find some other ones, but generally, all stories have one of these four types of conflict. It's either going to be character versus character, so the main character of the story versus another character of the story, character versus character. You can have character versus nature. If anyone has ever seen the movie The Gray or something where some or Castaway with Tom Hanks, that would be character versus nature. You have character versus society. Society is the issue that the character is trying to overcome, or finally, character versus themselves. So it could be one of these four generally. There are some outside this, but these are your big four that you will run into 99% of the time. So we talked about exposition, we introduced our characters, now we have our conflict, something happened, and now we are in the rising action. Now, rising action are the events that increase the tension. So there's going to be some type of conflict, but that conflict only goes as far as what happens along the way. It's that journey along conflict, right? So thinking of a movie that maybe you guys have all seen, um, let's say Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You've all probably seen it. So you have we introduce the characters, then we have a conflict, right? So if you guys are familiar with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, you introduce Charlie and you introduce Willy Wonka and all these people, and now the conflict comes when they enter into the chocolate factory. Now, the rising action are the things that happen to cause tension. In this case, it would be all the kids getting, you know, killed essentially at Willy Wonka's factory. So that's gonna be a rising action. Now, the climax is give me one part or many parts that create a high point of interest in the story. This is like the ultimate. This is the big part. This is how this is the final fight scene of your movie, right? So usually at the climax, you can kind of assume what's going to happen at the end of the movie. You have maybe a battle, maybe some type of um, understanding, some type of revelation or something. That's going to be your climax. And finally, you have falling action. Now, falling action is when the tension starts to decrease and everything begins to settle down. So the fight scene ends and people are starting to calm down and things are starting to go back to normal. That's your falling action. And finally, resolution. Resolution is when the conflict has been solved and usually indicates the ending of the story. Maybe one of those happily ever after kind of things. You're going the Disney route. But that's it. That's plot and conflict, right? And there's five elements to it. You have your exposition, so we're introducing our characters. You have your conflict, so the issues that they're going to be facing. You have the rising action, so now the conflict is getting a little more intense and then people are trying to figure out what to do. Finally, you hit the climax, the big turning point of the story, and you can see, okay, maybe this is going to happen at the end of the story. And finally, you have the falling action, which is slowly kind of declining on the craziness that's going on and stuff's coming back to normal. And then everything is resolved at the end. So, very basic. That is the elements of plot and conflict in a story. I've attached some documents for you as well in the week one materials. So I would like you guys to do. There's a little Google form in there that talks about the gift of the Magi. It's a pretty short story. So read through it and you guys go ahead and answer those questions. It'll talk about plot, it'll talk about conflict, it'll talk about resolution. All right. Well, great. Hopefully, you guys picked something up. You've learned something new today. I'll be posting videos like this almost daily, so make sure that you are checking your Google Classroom so you can have the ability to do the work and know what's going on. But as for now, thank you. We will see you guys soon.